If you're here because you want your Volkswagen to last, to stay smooth, tight, and genuinely enjoyable past 150,000 miles without draining your wallet and surprise repairs, you're in the right place. This isn't about oil changes or tire rotations. You already know those. This is about the quiet maintenance tasks nobody reminds you about. The ones hiding between service intervals. The ones that don't flash a warning light until the damage is already done. And by the time you notice, the repair bill is no longer small. Today, you're getting exactly what you came for. The overlooked maintenance tasks that separate average Volkswagen ownership from the kind that feels dialed in, intentional, and long-lasting. There are really two versions of owning a Volkswagen. On the surface, they look identical. Both owners change their oil, both fill up with fuel, both drive their car every day without obvious issues. But underneath that surface, one of those owners is quietly doing a handful of extra tasks that rarely show up on a dashboard reminder. They're not complicated, they're not expensive. Most of them are completely DIY friendly, but they make the difference between a car that feels refined at 150,000 miles and one that feels worn out and expensive at 80,000. The frustrating part is that these tasks aren't skipped because they're difficult. They're skipped because most owners were never told they matter. That changes now. The first overlooked task is cleaning the intake valves on direct injection engines to prevent carbon buildup. If you drive a Volkswagen with a TSI or TFSI engine, which includes the overwhelming majority of petrol Volkswagens sold over the past 15 years, your engine uses direct injection. Instead of spraying fuel into the intake port like older port-injected engines, direct injection sprays fuel directly into the combustion chamber. It's efficient, it's powerful, it improves fuel economy and throttle response. It's also responsible for one of the most commonly misunderstood maintenance needs in modern VW ownership. In older port-injected engines, fuel passed over the intake valves every time the engine drew in air. That constant spray of fuel acted like a solvent, washing away oil residue and preventing carbon deposits from building up on the valves. In a direct injection engine, that cleaning effect no longer exists. The intake valves are exposed only to air and crankcase blow-by gases. Those blow-by gases contain fine oil vapor. And that oil vapor, over thousands of miles, slowly bakes onto the hot intake valves and hardens into carbon deposits. At first, nothing feels wrong, but over time, that carbon buildup restricts airflow into the cylinder. It disrupts the carefully engineered air turbulence required for efficient combustion. Eventually, you may notice rough idling, hesitation under light throttle, reduced power, slightly worse fuel economy, or even occasional misfires. It doesn't feel catastrophic, it just feels like the engine is aging prematurely. This isn't a defect, it's a known characteristic of direct injection technology, and it requires proactive maintenance. The professional solution is walnut shell blasting. A technician removes the intake manifold and uses crushed walnut shells as a blasting medium to remove carbon deposits without damaging the metal valves. It's highly effective and typically costs between $200 and $400 depending on location and engine configuration. But here's what many owners don't realize. If you address carbon buildup early, you can often avoid needing walnut blasting at all. There are dedicated intake cleaning products formulated specifically for direct injection engines. When applied correctly through the intake system while the engine is running, they can dissolve softer deposits before they harden into thick, stubborn layers. The key is timing. Addressing this every 40 to 50,000 miles before symptoms appear keeps deposits manageable. Owners who stay ahead of it rarely face heavy buildup. Owners who ignore it eventually do. The second overlooked task is replacing the Haldex filter and fluid in all-wheel drive models. If you drive a Volkswagen with 4Motion, like a Golf R or other Audi platform-based VW, there's a maintenance item sitting quietly at the rear of your drivetrain that almost nobody talks about until it fails. The Haldex unit is the electronically controlled clutch coupling that distributes torque between the front and rear axles. It's what makes 4Motion work. Inside that unit is a clutch pack running in its own dedicated oil. That oil has its own filter, its own service interval, and very real consequences if neglected. Over time, Haldex oil degrades. It collects clutch material and debris. The filter begins to clog. When the filter becomes restricted, the internal pump struggles to build the hydraulic pressure required to engage the clutch pack properly. The result isn't an immediate breakdown, it's reduced all-wheel drive performance. The rear axle may not receive torque as quickly or as consistently as it should. Over time, accelerated clutch wear sets in. Eventually, you're looking at replacing the Haldex unit, an $800 to $2,000 repair depending on model and labor rates. The preventative maintenance is straightforward. A Haldex service kit typically costs between $40 and $70 and includes the correct oil, filter, and necessary sealing washers. The process involves draining the old oil, replacing the filter, and refilling with fresh fluid. It takes about 45 minutes and should be done every 30,000 to 40,000 miles. While official recommendations have varied over the years, experienced mechanics consistently recommend treating 40,000 miles as the absolute maximum interval and 30,000 miles as the safer bet, especially for spirited driving or harsh conditions. It's one of the cheapest ways to protect one of the most expensive drivetrain components in your Volkswagen. The third overlooked task involves spark plugs. It sounds basic, but the way Volkswagen owners often mismanage spark plug intervals is subtle. Modern Iridium spark plugs sometimes carry extended service intervals up to 40,000 miles. That number can be misleading, especially on turbocharged engines. Turbochargers increase cylinder pressure by compressing incoming air. Higher cylinder pressure means the spark plug must fire reliably under more demanding conditions. That increased stress accelerates electrode wear. A plug that might genuinely last 40,000 miles in a naturally aspirated engine can begin degrading noticeably at 25,000 to 30,000 miles in a turbocharged TSI engine, especially if driven under boost regularly. Worn spark plugs don't just slightly reduce performance. As the gap widens, ignition coils must work harder to fire across it. That extra strain accelerates coil pack wear. What begins as slightly overdue spark plugs can end in a misfire and a check engine light. Left long enough, misfires can even damage the catalytic converter. The smart approach is simple. Inspect plugs around 20,000 miles and replace them by 30,000 miles regardless of appearance. A set of correct spec NGK or Bosch Iridium plugs for a 4-cylinder VW usually costs $30 to $50. Ignition coils cost significantly more per unit. Fresh plugs at proper intervals protect the entire ignition system. And always use the correct heat range specified for your engine. Volkswagen's turbo engines are sensitive to it. The fourth overlooked task is brake fluid flushing. Brake fluid is hygroscopic, meaning it absorbs moisture from the atmosphere over time. This happens through rubber brake hoses and even the reservoir cap. It's unavoidable. Fresh brake fluid has a boiling point above 400 degrees Fahrenheit. After 2 to 3 years, moisture absorption can lower that boiling point below 300 degrees. Under heavy braking, fluid temperature rises. If the fluid boils, it creates vapor in the hydraulic lines. Vapor compresses, liquid does not. The result is a soft or sinking brake pedal in reduced stopping power when you need it most. Volkswagen specifies a brake fluid flush every 2 years, regardless of mileage. Experienced mechanics universally agree with this interval. The process involves bleeding each caliper in sequence until fresh fluid replaces the old fluid throughout the system. DOT4 brake fluid typically costs $10 to $15 per liter. A one-person bleeding kit costs around $20 to $30. The total DIY cost is often under $40. It's inexpensive, straightforward, and directly tied to safety, yet it's consistently ignored. Is checking the spare tire pressure. It's simple, it's easy, and it's almost universally ignored. Spare tires lose pressure slowly over time. Space-saver spares often require around 60 psi, much higher than standard road tires. After years in the boot, they're often significantly underinflated. The cruel irony is that you only discover this at the worst possible moment, after you already have a puncture. Checking spare pressure every time you rotate tires ensures it's ready when needed. Tire pressure monitoring systems typically don't monitor the spare. It requires a manual check. 2 minutes with a gauge, that's it. Tasks, all affordable, all overlooked. The intake valves, the Haldex unit, the spark plugs, the brake fluid, the spare tire. These are the gaps in standard maintenance that quietly determine whether your Volkswagen feels tight, refined, and reliable deep into high mileage, or whether it begins to feel expensive long before it should. Close those gaps and your Volkswagen does exactly what it was engineered to do: deliver solid, composed, confidence-inspiring driving year after year. Ignore them, and small oversights slowly compound into larger repairs. The difference isn't luck, it isn't brand reputation, it's attention to the details most people never see until it's too late.